On December 5, 1872, a British cargo ship named Dei Gratia was making its way across the Atlantic Ocean when its crew spotted something odd. A brigantine ship was drifting aimlessly in the distance, its sails slightly torn and flapping against the wind in an unnatural way. It was the Mary Celeste, an American merchant vessel that had left New York a month ago. The captain of the Dei Gratia, David Morehouse, quickly recognized the ship. He knew its captain, Benjamin Briggs, and found it strange that the vessel was not on course. The ship looked abandoned, yet there were no visible signs of distress. Curious and worried, Morehouse ordered a small team to board the Mary Celeste. What they found inside would become one of the biggest maritime mysteries of all time. As the boarding party walked onto the deck, an eerie silence surrounded them. There was no sign of the crew, no sounds of footsteps, no cries for help. The ship was completely empty. The lifeboat was missing, suggesting that the crew had abandoned ship willingly. But why? There were no visible signs of struggle, no blood, and no damage that would suggest an attack. Below deck, everything looked strangely intact. The cargo of industrial alcohol was untouched. Food and materials were still neatly stored, enough to last for 6 months. The crew's personal belongings, including expensive items like jewelry and clothing, stayed untouched. Even the ship's log was in place, with the last note dated November 25, 1872, just 9 days before the vessel was found. Nothing in the log suggested any immediate danger. Despite the ship's overall condition, there were a few odd features. The Mary Celeste had taken on some water, but it was far from sinking. The main hatch was closed, but a few smaller doors were open. The ship's compass was found broken, and a deep scratch was visible on the bow. However, these clues offered no real explanation for the crew's disappearance. Something had caused them to leave, but the question remained, what? For nearly 150 years, historians, sailors, and investigators have tried to solve the mystery of the Mary Celeste. Many theories have been suggested, but none have been proven. One option is piracy, but this seems unlikely. Pirates would have looted the ship, yet all important cargo and possessions were left behind. Some believe there was a mutiny, with the crew potentially turning against Captain Briggs. However, there was no proof of a struggle, and the captain was known to be a well-respected leader. If a mutiny had taken place, the ship would not have been abandoned in such an orderly way. Another idea suggests a natural disaster. Some believe that a sudden storm or rogue wave could have struck, scaring the crew into abandoning ship. However, the vessel was still fully seaworthy when found, making this theory questionable. A more scientific idea involves the ship's cargo. The Mary Celeste was carrying over 1,700 barrels of commercial alcohol. Some experts believe that vapors from the alcohol could have leaked, causing the fear of a possible explosion. In a panic, the crew may have briefly evacuated in the lifeboat, planning to return once it was safe. But if a storm or strong winds had removed them from the ship, they could have been lost at sea forever. Some theories have suggested something more supernatural. Some think the ship was cursed, haunted by the spirits of lost sailors. Others have even suggested theories of alien abduction, suggesting that the crew vanished without a trace due to unknown forces. Despite countless investigations, no clear answer has ever been found. After its discovery, the Mary Celeste was taken to Gibraltar, where an official investigation was started. No conclusive answers were ever reached, and the case was finally closed without explanation. Over the years, the ship continued to sail under different owners, but it was said to be cursed. Every captain who took charge of the Mary Celeste faced misfortune. Several died under mysterious circumstances, and strange accidents plagued its journeys. In 1885, the ship met its final fate when it was purposely wrecked off the coast of Haiti in an insurance fraud scheme. Its remains sank beneath the waves, never to be seen again. But its fame lived on. To this day, the Mary Celeste remains one of the most famous ghost ships in history. It was a vessel that left port with a full crew, but sailed into history as a quiet specter, forever drifting through time. Whatever happened on that fateful journey may never be known. The Mary Celeste remains a chilling reminder that some mysteries are destined to stay unsolved. In 1977, In the quiet suburb of Enfield, London, a small council house at 284 Green Street became the site of one of the most terrifying hauntings ever reported. The Hodgson family lived there, single mother Peggy Hodgson and her 4 children, Janet, Margaret, Johnny, and Billy. They were an ordinary family, trying to make ends meet, but what they experienced inside that house would haunt them for the rest of their lives. One evening in August, Janet and Margaret were in their bedroom when they heard banging sounds coming from the walls. At first, they thought it was just the pipes or sound from outside, but the sounds grew louder, heavy, and seemed to come from all around them. Then, something impossible happened. A chest of drawers in their bedroom suddenly slid across the floor on its own. Janet screamed, and her mother ran in to see what was happening. Peggy tried to push the desk back, but it wouldn't move. It felt as if an invisible force was keeping it in place. Then, the knocking returned, this time coming from inside the walls, getting louder and louder. Terrified, the family ran to their neighbors for help. The cops were called, and 2 officers arrived at the house. They checked every room, but found no invaders. Just as they were about to leave, a wooden chair in the living room suddenly moved across the floor. On its own. One of the officers later signed a written statement, confirming that she had watched the chair move by itself. But without a crime to report, the cops could do nothing. Soon, paranormal detectives were brought in. Among them were Maurice Gross and Guy Leon Playfair, from the Society for Psychical Research. They set up recording devices and cameras to document what was happening. What they found was beyond understanding. The strange knocking sounds continued, getting more aggressive. Cold spots appeared in different parts of the house, and objects started flying through the air. Furniture was flipped without anyone touching it. Janet, the 11-year-old daughter, seemed to be the center of the action. She would go into strange trances, speaking in a deep, raspy voice that did not sound like her own. One night, she started speaking as someone else, a man named Bill Wilkins. Through Janet, the voice claimed that Bill had once lived in the house and had died in an old chair downstairs. Investigators later confirmed that a man named Bill Wilkins had lived in the house years before and had indeed died in the exact way Janet described. Skeptics accused the girls of faking the action, and at times they did admit to exaggerating some of the events. But even after the hoaxes were uncovered, strange occurrences continued, witnessed by investigators, reporters, and even neighbors. Photos caught Janet being lifted into the air as if she was levitating. Objects were seen moving on their own, and disembodied sounds were recorded, whispering throughout the house. The haunting lasted for 2 years. By 1979, the activity had faded, and Janet grew older, finally leaving the house. Years later, she admitted that she and her sister had staged some events, but claimed that most of what happened was real. Even the detectives, who had worked on many paranormal cases before, said that Enfield was unlike anything they had ever seen. To this day, the case of the Enfield Poltergeist remains one of the most well-documented hauntings in history. Some believe it was a hoax, while others are sure that something truly sinister took place inside 284 Green Street. One thing is certain, the Hodgson family lived in fear, and some say that whatever plagued them never truly left. It was a hot summer day in July 1954 at Haneda Airport in Tokyo, Japan. The airport was packed with tourists moving through security, checking their luggage, and going through customs. Someone dressed well and looked like any other foreign guest was among them. He was sure of himself as he walked up to the customs desk. His looks were normal, he was friendly, and he spoke Japanese very well. He handed over his passport, expected to be cleared without issue. But the customs officer frowned as he looked at the paper. The passport looked fully authentic, stamped with multiple visas, complete with an official seal, and aged like a well-used travel document. Still, something was wrong. It was given out by a country that doesn't exist. The cop looked over the pages again, not understanding what was going on. On the front, the name of the country was written very clearly, Taured. He had never heard of it. He checked the list of recognized countries, but Taured was nowhere to be found. Calling over a supervisor, the officer asked the man where his country was based. Without doubt, the traveler pointed to a map, right at the spot where Andorra is today, between France and Spain. The customs officers traded nervous glances. They told the man that no country called Taured had ever existed. The traveler was baffled, claiming that Taured had been there for over 1,000 years. He presented business papers, a driver's license, and even bank statements, all from Taured. The documents looked fully real, but no such nation existed in the world. Authorities took him into jail for further questioning. They searched their records, contacted foreign agencies, and checked his supposed country's history. But no sign of Taured existed. Determined to keep him under observation, officials put the man in a guarded hotel room. 2 security officers were stationed outside his door, and his personal papers were locked away for further inspection. By morning, the man was gone. Despite the room being on a high floor with no balcony or possible escape route, he had disappeared. His personal belongings, passport, and official papers had vanished as well. The guards swore they had not seen him leave, and there were no signs of forced entrance. Officials searched the entire hotel, checked security video, and re-examined his records. But it was as if the man from Taured had never existed. Some believe he was a time traveler or had slipped through dimensions into our world before being pulled back. Others think it was a carefully planned fake. But decades later, no evidence has ever emerged to explain what truly happened. The riddle of the man from Taured remains one of the strangest unsolved cases in history.